Good afternoon to you, our viewers. Welcome to another wonderful episode of Punch Sports Extra. My name is Shegun Odunayo. I have me here, my co-anchor, my co-analyst, and my colleague, and together we'll be taking you through 29 minutes of the very best of sporting updates. Of course, like we always do, we'll be starting with the front page this morning. But before we hit the front page, let me tell you that I have anything on Daramola here with me. Was wondering, this guy not going to introduce me. Well, I've done that.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Anything.
Yeah, it's good to be here again.
Yeah, all right, let's hit the beginning of the show very quickly by looking at Punch Sports Extra Prints copy, the front page, like we always do. And their pictures are boldly plastered on the front page this morning. Vanguards, they call them, Remo Stars, claim their first NPFL title with 3 games to go. I mean, if you know Remo Stars, you know in the last couple of years, they've been close like Netflix FC. But unlike Netflix FC, they have gotten the title. Their hands are on the title with a 1-0 win yesterday in Ikene. Despite the fact that the lights were out and artificial lights were there in the stadium, that didn't stop that cracker of a goal. Controversy about if that goal was a goal or not. Well, the most important thing is that Remo Stars have won the league for the first time in their history. Coach Daniel Ogumodede, or Ijabor, like he's popularly known, his team have gotten the trophy at last.
What a way to win the NPFL title. You know, it's never gone down this way, for a while, although, there were, talks about whether they would drop the ball again this time. Some seasons ago, I think it was like 3-4 seasons ago, they finished 3rd, and then like the last 2 seasons, they finished 2nd. Now, talk about consistency. These guys have been consistent, you understand? Unlike some teams, they'll be at that level, and then, after losing, they came close. I think it was They came close last season
and 2 Rangers got it. They came close 2 seasons ago when they came for the final 4.
Some people would have given up and said, "Oh well, we've tried our very best." But Ijabor, like you said, Ija is fight. Is war. You saw that celebration. It was a copy of most Manchester United player's name.
Zegzi.
Yeah, Joshua Irobosa Zegzi. Yes. Now that's his full name.
Nigerians trying to always Nigerianize it.
Whatever you think, but what a way to win the game. However, that goal, it was controversial. Yeah. It was a cracker of a goal anyway, because it was counted. So you can call it a goal. But was it a goal? Did it cross the line? Now that's the big question. As far as I know, as far as we know, there's no VAR in the Nigeria NPFL, and there is no goal line technology in the NPFL as we speak. So that will have settled a whole lot of noise. You understand? But then I think at this stage, this calls for the management of the league to look into bringing the what's it called now, the goal line technology. Let's start from there, and then maybe the VAR when in subsequent seasons. Or maybe next season we can actually have it. But
if they're ready.
But yes, if they are ready. But the goal line technology is a must. It could have, changed things yesterday. It could have changed things, and then maybe we would have just waited till the last game of the season.
To win exactly. The last game at home.
Or who knows? I won't go there. But congratulations to Daniel Ogumodede and his guys. They did, an amazing job to bury the league. Now, with 3 games to go, you understand? And, so if they lose the remaining 3 games, they still have won the league because they have like 10 points ahead of the second place team. So, congratulations to them.
All right, still talking about the front page. Remo Stars weren't the only ones winning the league yesterday. Another club was doing that in England as well. 20 times champions of England. Of course, equaling Manchester United's record. One would wonder, as a Manchester United fan, if you begin to wonder, when was the last time we won this league and when next are we going to win it? It doesn't look like they're going to be winning it anytime soon. But congratulations to Liverpool. You saw what happened yesterday. Liverpool trashing, bashing Tottenham Hotspur yesterday. It didn't look like it was going to be like that because Dominic Solanke, one-time Liverpool player, was ready to ruin the party for Liverpool. But the Reds said never. not here at Anfield, and they got one back equalized, got 2, 3, 4, 5. Even Mo Salah, who had not scored in over 6 games, came to the party. Yes. Congratulations to Arne Slot, slotting in perfectly there at Liverpool.
Yes, we need to say big congratulations to Arne Slot, especially Arne Slot. Reason being that this is his first season in the English Premier League. This is
club
exactly, and I think kudos should also go to Jurgen Klopp for
leaving a nice team.
Exactly, he left a very good, structured, and balanced team. For Arne Slot, and this is the start. Let's see what happens next season.
Is it the start?
Yes, it's the start.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Now the start to where I don't know. I'm not going to say that. He has the keys in his hands. He'll determine where he goes from here. You understand? And the team will determine where they go from here. And I think they settled a big part of that by securing the what's it called now, contract extension for Mohamed Salah and. What's his name now? Virgil van Dijk is also, going to stay.
Yeah.
But the one man who we don't know where his future lies, or who we think we know where his future lies,
we are not sure
is
today.
Exactly Alexander Arnold. But away from transfers, away from contracts, congratulations to Liverpool. They did a very good job. The point margin between Liverpool and Arsenal is quite, it's quite much.
That's
and with like 4 games to go, if I'm not mistaken, and even Arsenal, if they are not careful, can miss out on the Champions League, because the point between Arsenal and
they can't mathematically.
But they are 67 points presently, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Newcastle are 65 points, and then Man City and Chelsea are about maybe 61 points. Then
Nottingham is 5th with 60.
With 60, so you can see that 7 points with 4 games to go. 7 points
is 12. Well, it doesn't look like
it. But it doesn't look like it. But this is football. Anything can happen. However, let's not take shine away from from Liverpool. I was going to talk about Mohamed Salah. He made a statement yesterday saying that this is like the biggest, or this is the most important Premier League to win. Why? Because they do not have Bobby Firmino, they do not have Sadio Mane, and they do not have Jurgen Klopp. I don't know if that should cause any rancor. But I feel that, maybe Salah is trying to say that, yes, you people were making noise when these guys left. But you can see that I'm the man, and let me just say, in my own...
Or he was probably giving...
the fact that, they've done a good job.
Those guys and saying that. I mean,
obviously.
Do without those things. So it depends on what side of the divide you belong.
Obviously.
Still sticking with the headlines at the front pages this morning. There's a Nigerian superstar, the President African Footballer of the Year, right there. And the report is that Manchester United are telling Atalanta, thank you very much for Rasmus Højlund, but we are not doing it again. However, give us your new star and then keep him. And I think that's what they are doing, because it says that it's going to be swap, Lookman Højlund swap, where Højlund will be moving to Atalanta and then Lookman will be back in England. Looks like a good deal or not?
I'm sorry to burst anybody's bubble, but I think you should be used to it by now. When the transfer season comes close, you'll be hearing a whole lot of rumors.
Yeah.
You understand? I don't think that Manchester United are interested in Ademola Lookman.
Wow.
That does not mean that he's not the kind of player that they can't buy. Yeah, he's a very good player, but if you look at it, they have a Joshua Zirkzee who is settling in. He has scored about over 10 goals. It's his first season for Manchester United. He has scored about 11 goals, if I'm not mistaken. He's had some assists in his first season, and towards the tail end of this season, he was an instrumental player because of his work rate for Manchester United, and it was a big miss, or rather, he is a big miss for Manchester United going into the run of games that are left, especially the Europa League semi-final. However, they have a player like Joshua Zirkzee, who is kind of a bit similar, or who could play the same position as Ademola Lookman, who could, rotate, change positions, switch positions, play here and there. So I don't think is a deal that is coming to fruition.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think so.
Lastly, before we leave the front page, another man who is almost always on the headlines because of his great performances at his club at the moment. Victor Osimhen is moving closer and closer to the all-time scoring record for a Galatasaray player as he hits 31 goals. Victor Osimhen scoring goals for fun. But for me, I think the big question is, where will he be plying his trade next season?
Thank you very much.
Reports came in this weekend that English club are no longer interested in him because of his behavior. Reports came in this morning that Juventus are pulling out of the deal. What's wrong with
There have been reports. There would always be reports. You understand? Because some weeks ago, we heard that Atalanta do not want to sell him to Juve because Juve are rival clubs. You understand? They don't want to sell him there. And then over the week, after that week, we heard that Manchester United are going for him. Only for Austin to tell everybody that Manchester United do not have Osimhen in their plan currently. We never know what will happen in some days. That might change, you understand? And then now we are hearing that some English clubs are out of the I think it just comes with the package anyways. For a player like Victor Osimhen, it comes with the package. You hear these things, you hear that thing, but I bet you that any team that gets their hand on Victor Osimhen have themselves a whole lot. They have themselves the most talked about striker currently in football, because talk about Erling Haaland is signed a lengthy deal with City. You talk about Harry Kane, who doesn't look like he's leaving anytime soon, who obviously is like, winning his first career trophy, you understand? And then who else again? Talk about Lewandowski, is obviously settled in Barcelona. Talk about Lautaro Martinez, who is obviously not going to be let go by Inter Milan. So who else is there if not for Victor Osimhen? And funnily, next week another thing will come up again, and you hear, Chelsea are changing their mind about Jackson. Arsenal are really interested in, you understand? And apart from Osimhen, there is also Guy Curry, who is also being talked about. Let's not forget that.
I don't think it's as much talked about.
As much as Osimhen. But the big question, like you've asked, is where is Osimhen going to end? Hopefully, it will be in England. Hopefully, it will be in the red side of Manchester. Hopefully, the Manchester United board will know what they are doing. That a player like Osimhen is fit for the Manchester United squad. But will they get to the Champions League? Because they need to get to Champions League to attract a player like Osimhen.
All right, big questions begging for answers. I think in a couple of weeks' time, all these answers will be gotten. We'll move away from the front page of Punch Sports Extra this morning, and we go into the crux of the matter. Where should we start from? Let's start from the FA Cup semi-final games, starting from Saturday, where Crystal Palace mauled Aston Villa. Nobody, probably many persons wouldn't have expected it, although this season they've been constantly beating Villa. Anywhere they catch them, they beat them. They are like the Barcelona to the Real Madrid of Aston Villa's life this season. But it was a very bad one for Villa, because Palace started well, but they were trying to defend and they were not really playing up deep. I mean, they were not playing up front, they were playing down deep. And before we could say Jack Robinson, Eberechi Eze came to the party. Before we could say Jack Robinson, there was a penalty. He missed it, talking about their striker. Mateta missed the penalty. But 2-3 minutes after, there was another goal from Ismail Assar. Before we could say Sa or Ma, there was another one from Ismail Assar. At the end of the day, we said Sa. Look at how, an Aston Villa that was fantastic against PSG, and the world was really saying fantastic, brilliant, wonderful. And just a couple of weeks after, they crashed like a pack of cats.
Well, it goes to tell you what football is, and that's why we enjoy the game
Beautiful
called
game.
Football. It's a sad one for Aston Villa. Reason being that Aston Villa were some days ago or some weeks ago in the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League, having lost the first leg against PSG, but they came back. They were resilient, and having the likes of Marcus Rashford, Marco Asensio, name a few. It's sad to see that Aston Villa crashed out of the FA Cup just like that, and they are some games away from crashing out of the Champions League because they were very close. Because after the game against PSG, they went, I think it was away to Newcastle United, and they thrashed a Newcastle United team that just thrashed Manchester United.
Exactly.
You understand?
4-1.
So what momentum, what a big momentum for them. And this is the best place to go. Go to the semi-finals and get to the finals. And hopefully, you pray that Nottingham Forest, which unfortunately they didn't. I think it was Nottingham Forest, if I'm not mistaken. Beat Manchester City. Or you leave it to the finals and you give everything.
You do your job.
You do your job. You give everything. Blood, sweat, name it. But unfortunately, Crystal Palace, who have, been an amazing team this season. You can't take it from them. Although they are not, in contention for the Champions League spots, but you can't take it from them. They started well this season. And they are, they have been consistent. There are some things teams in the Premier League you can name. You name Crystal Palace, you name Fulham, you name Nottingham Forest. You even talk about Aston Villa, who, unfortunately, they dropped the form at the wrong time. But kudos to Crystal Palace for, getting 3 goals against Aston Villa in the
semi-final.
Exactly.
Massive.
So I hope, I'm just looking out for what happens to Marcus Rashford at the end of the day, because he's lost out in the Champions League, a chance to win the Champions League. They are almost out of qualification for the Champions League, and they're out, the only trophy that they could win. So, but that doesn't take away the fact that, he's going to be a big talk in the transfer season.
All right, talking about the second semi-final now, it was City up against Forest, and people thought the defensive prowess of Forest was going to keep City at bay, especially being one of their worst seasons in recent years. But no, said Pep Guardiola's side, he hit them hard, 1-2, and got themselves into the final. Now we have a Palace City final. Would you still winning that, Anything?
I don't want to, judge based on the fact that City are in the finals. You understand? City are in a good run. You look at, their run of form presently. They're in a good run of form. They've won some games. They've won, like their last 5 games, if I'm not mistaken. I think the pressure is away from them because they're out of the Champions League. There is a little pressure on them. They are not contending for the Premier League, which is already gone to, Liverpool. So they are in a good shape presently. Kevin De Bruyne is leaving the club at the end of this season, and he would want to leave with a bang. I'm sure he's going to give his all. It's going to be a big game. The last time Palace were in the FA Cup final was about, I think, 12, 13 years ago against Manchester United. I think it was the Liverpool Manchester United. And what's their coach's name? No, I can't remember. I'm looking at his face right now, but I can't remember his name. Who danced? And he danced too early. So that would be a big lesson for he danced too early. So it would be a big lesson for them, and it would even be a lesson for, a point of caution rather for Manchester City to rejoice too early. It's the final. Anything can happen. We saw the Capital One final, Carabao Cup final rather, against Newcastle against Liverpool, and you could, on paper, you would have said that, that's
a
game for Liverpool. So like this now, on paper, you say that it's a game for Manchester City to win. But when it comes to the game of football, it's the final. Anything can happen. So I don't want... Yeah. So I would say that it's anybody's game. Whoever wants it more will get the game. Let's see. But I hope... I think it would be interesting to see Crystal Palace win the FA Cup.
Because I get it.
Whatever.
All right, away from the FA Cup, let's talk about England, the English Premier League now. First, we knew what happened at the weekend where Mohamed Salah and his colleagues won the trophy, and you could see Salah going for an iconic celebration by taking a selfie with the fans. That picture has been posted by Liverpool. If you look very carefully, after that picture was taken, there was, I think, a member of the social media team of Liverpool ran down to the fan to get that picture from the phone, and that picture was posted yesterday, and of course, boom, less than a few minutes after, it was doing 13 million views on Twitter instantly. The commentator said this is probably going to be one of the most iconic pictures of the English Premier League in the future, and immediately it started manifesting. But about other guys and top 4, because top 5 now, because that's like the only thing. Relegation guys are settled. We have a league winner already. Top 5 guys. Newcastle won their game. Nottingham will be playing their own game later on Thursday, the 1st of May. But Chelsea won their own game against Everton. And the top 5 battle is dancing. It's only first that is certain for now. Like Anyton said, Arsenal too. Mathematically it doesn't look like it. But if they are not careful, they may even drop from second if games don't go their way. But quick one, Anyton. What teams do you think will make the top 5? Few more games to go. But what team do you think would make Champions League?
As it is, I think the table is going to end the way it should end the way it is. Wow. It looks like it is ending the way it is.
Nottingham will be 5th?
Yes. Okay. So presently we have Liverpool, I beg your pardon. Yeah. Liverpool are top. They are going nowhere. They are going to stay there. They are gone already. So we have Arsenal in 2nd position, and we have Newcastle 3rd. We have Manchester City, if I'm not mistaken, 4th, and
but there's Chelsea somewhere there.
Yeah, between Chelsea and Manchester City.
Somewhere there.
4th and fifth.
Nottingham is fifth.
Nottingham sixth. Nottingham are 6 presently.
Oh, Nottingham is 6, Villa
yes,
7th. That's true.
Now,
but they have a game in hand.
Yes, thank you. I was going to go there. So they have a game at hand, and hopefully they might win because they actually have dropped their form. You know, I told you the other time that they lost 2 games, you know, at a stretch, and that obviously has, you know, affected their game and it affected their form. If they don't make the Champions League, it's not going to be, you know, a bad season for them. However, if they make the Champions League, it is going to be a very good season for them. So winning that game will likely take them maybe to 3rd or 4th, if I'm not mistaken, maybe to 4th, you know, because they
3 points.
Yes, 3 points. So it's likely to take them
even 1 point now is a plus.
Exactly, 1 point is a plus. So, but you know, they still have some games to go.
Yeah.
And from the look of it, the fixtures, these guys will still play themselves. 1 or 2 of them will still
Chelsea is playing Liverpool next week.
So it's
though Liverpool are champions, so
they still have a say.
Rest some of their players.
However, they still have a say. You understand? And they are not chasing for the Champions League, so
they are not.
They still have So they still have a say. Because you never know what you have with Chelsea. You never know. You understand? The other day it was a game against Ipswich at Stamford Bridge, and they were 2 goals down. But unfortunately for them, you know, they came back up. So games like that matter because 3 points against Ipswich would have put them in a good position, maybe 3rd, or you know, would have pushed Man City down further, and then you know, give them breathing space in terms of points. So I think we'll see an interesting end. You know, remaining 4 games in the Premier League. So I'm expecting it to be the way it is. However, I would be excited if I see a Nottingham Forest making the Champions League.
All right, let's move over to the Copa del Rey final, perhaps the most talked about game this weekend, where it depends on how you look at that game. It was crazy. I mean, Barcelona got a fantastic first goal off the feet of Pedri. Real Madrid came back into that game. Fantastic free kick from Kylian Mbappe. Aurelien Tchouameni got a header. 2-1, 85 minutes. Brrr, Real Madrid went bananas. Thibaut Courtois, you know, just courtoised and, you know, somehow brought back Barcelona into that game with that error that led to a 2-2 goal. Extra time called, and the team that wanted it the most got it. So thanks to Koundé's fantastic shot. I think it was a worthy win for Barcelona in the end.
Yes, you say that again. I think you can say that again and again and again, that it was a worthy win for Barcelona because they played all out. Yeah. You know, they had Lewandowski away. Yeah. You understand? And you know, without Lewandowski, they had what's his name now, Ferran Torres, and you know, he justified his inclusion, you know, in the team. However, I would say that second goal, the equalizer, the 85th minute equalizer, was not a mistake from Courtois. In my own opinion, I don't think it was a mistake. It was, you know, I think that was the best thing to do. Come out, you know, it was just one-on-one with him, and the only person there was what's his name now? It was
too far for him to have come out.
It was too far, but you didn't think Rudiger could get him? But you know, Rudiger was injured quite a bit around that time in the game. But the point was that what should either of them have done? You shouldn't have allowed Ferran Torres leave that way. Take one for the team. It's the 85th minute, for crying out loud. Clear somebody's son away from there. No, it's the fact. If I were either Rudiger, yes, take one for the team, and that would have ended the game. Just take a red card for the team because it was unnecessary. It was unnecessary afterwards because he now eventually got a red card after he was substituted. It was unnecessary. Now I'm not saying that he didn't, you know, play his part in the game. You know, kudos to the team. Real Madrid, I told you some weeks ago, they have dropped form. Some of these players are tired. It's obvious, pretty obvious. But this is the final, and that's the only thing you could win this season. At that point in time,
the league is still there for a chase.
Yes, the league is still there for a chase. But at that point in time, take one for the team. Take one for the team. But Barcelona were superior anyway, so give it to them.
Give it to them. Of course, they've taken it already. So I mean,
you can't take it back anyway.
Giving anything to them. Quick one, in the Italian Serie A, Juventus 2-0. Napoli won as well, 2-0. Scott McTominay.
Maxos.
What's
happening?
No, it looks like everybody leaves Man U. No. And they find their glory. Is Man U holding glory down?
Some other people leave Man U and find their footings. They were in Man U and they were blossoming, or they blossom under Man U, but until they were not. However, you cannot take the shine away. Hold on. You cannot take the shine away from Scott McTominay. Whether Manchester United have been in form, whether they've been out of form, he has been the terminator for Manchester United. Week in, week out, when he was in Manchester United, he was loyal and he gave his all. He was obvious. He's been scoring goals for Manchester United. And even when he left, it was as though, what's his name, Eric Ten Hag didn't want him to leave. The squad didn't want him to leave. But unfortunately, they had to sell somebody and it came down to him. However, the point now is not even about McTominay. The point in the Italian Serie A is that Inter Milan have dropped the ball and they have dropped it big time. They lost quite some games. They should have been in the final of the Italian Cup, but unfortunately they lost like 3-0 and 3-1 or so on aggregate against AC Milan, or 4-1 rather on aggregate, because the first leg ended 1-1 and then they lost to
AC Milan just knows how to beat them at the moment.
Exactly. And that before then they've lost some quite some games, and this is bad for them because going into Champions League, semi-final against what's his name now, Barcelona, you don't want to go exactly, because Barcelona are really hot presently, and they've won quite some games. Remember the league game, they were like 3-1 down already, and they came back to win that game 4-3. And that goes to show you the momentum they are in right now. They have the momentum on their side. Their game is almost perfect, but you don't want to go into that game. Inter Milan were top of the Serie A, but presently Napoli are back.
Napoli looks like they're going to get it.
It looks like they're going to get it. So it's an interesting one to watch out for.
All right. Very quickly, let's talk about Remo Stars. They just got 200 million naira extra yesterday with that win. You leave the NPFL is 200. Last season, it was 150 Rangers got. Good one. And they've, of course, automatic qualification for the CAF Champions League, where they are going to be getting preliminary round fee of 50,000 USD. Before, you didn't used to get anything until you make the CAF group stage. But now, just preliminary rounds of the CAF Champions League, you are getting 50,000 US dollars. If they make it past at the preliminary round and qualify for the group stages, they'll be getting, even if they go out in the group stages, they'll be getting 700,000 US dollars. Anytime, 50K for participation at now in the preliminary rounds is sure for them. Now, of course, they are getting an extra 200 million. We did calculation of 50,000 US dollars in naira.
And your calculator crashed.
No, that was for 700,000. That was for 700,000 US dollars. But for 50K, I think how much is that again? 50,000, 1516. That's
quite something.
Everywhere good for Daniel Gumodeli and his boys.
That celebration,
exactly.
So he want them everywhere still. So it's a good one for him.
Yeah, and now it remains to be seen who joins them. There are some guys up there close to them. Rivers United, Ikorodu doesn't even mind to put in their head. But it would be a good one for Ikorodu, making Africa at all, because this is a team that just came from a league. In fact, when the season started, they were in relegation waters.
Yeah, exactly. They were struggling.
And look at where they are now.
Oh well, that's a beautiful game of football. You never know. Once just a switch, and then I think we were talking about this Ikorodu City. Ikorodu City, like then, and we were saying that it could change. You understand? So, and that's just one thing about football. It can't change. And look at the Champions League as well. You have some teams, where you don't think they would be.
Quick one before we go into Inter Milan by Barcelona. Who do you think is winning this week? This week.
Who's at home again?
Is it by Umani?
Who is at home?
What is beyond that?
Who is at home again?
Good. My goodness. I think it's Barcelona that is home. I think it's Barcelona that is at home.
Okay,
no, it's Inter. Inter Milan is at home.
Regardless of who is at home, I think Inter have a point to prove. They've lost out of virtually almost everything that they could actually fight for this season. So they have a point to prove, and that will be against Barcelona. They are going to go all out against Barcelona. But I'm predicting a draw. All right, a 2-2 draw.
Second Champions League game, Arsenal up against PSG, Paris Saint-Germain.
So the first game against PSG ended 2-0 in the group stages, and that was in favor of Arsenal. However, this game against Arsenal, Arteta has made a war cry and said everybody, including the fans, needs to come to the party. But I'm seeing a victory for PSG.
All right, as we end the show, I believe it's time for us to end the show. It's important that we tell you that July 19 has been fixed for the bout between Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois. I was looking at their little span. Dubois was pushing at Usyk. I was like, bro, push at the right time. Oh, this is not so you're pushing there. Enter that place. That guy I owe you. Anyway, I think I'm going Usyk all the way. I think Usyk is going to tear that guy up. But you know, July 19th is far away. We still have a lot of time to talk about it. A big thank you to you, Anytone, for being a part of this.
It's my pleasure.
A big thank you to you, our viewers who watch. Like I always say, we are here because you are there. Stay out of trouble, guys. See you next week for Punch Sports Extra once again. God bless you.